Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. The Sabah elections will be held on November 29th, with nominations on November 15th and early voting November 25th. Now, with recent graft, whistleblower videos and corruption allegations, Sabah's politics face yet another credibility test at the hands of the electorate. What do they need to know? Joining me now on the show is Fiqah Roslan, BERSIH's Regional Vice Chair for Sabah. Fiqah, welcome back to the show. It's good to have you on. The dates have just been announced by the Election Commission. I'm just wondering what role BERSIH will be playing in the lead up to this election and during as well as beyond.
Yes, so in the lead up to the election, we have launched our Pemantau program, and so that one obviously is more monitoring the election as it happens on the day, but leading up to it, we're also looking to enhance media monitoring, paying closer attention to the social media pages of candidates, big political figures, and warlords especially, but also mainstream media, as in the news, mainstream news, as well as social media. As we know now, probably there are so many of these information update accounts popping up on social media. And so just getting a sense of what their narrative is, what are they quote unquote reporting on, and what the general sentiment is among people who consume this information.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. So with the media monitoring, and you said you're also going to be monitoring social media, what are you watching out for? What are the concerns in terms of paying close attention to the narrative online?
Yes, so very much guided by the Elections Commission Act, whether there are racial narratives, religious narratives, that sort of thing. And in Sabah especially, we might already be very familiar with the anti-PTI sentiment, so those kinds of things. But also if state resources are misappropriated. Yeah, and especially kind of what the sentiment is around corruption, especially with those series of graft videos and exposures, the whistleblower videos that have surfaced.
Right. And what is your sense, if I may ask, what is your sense of right now in the lead up to the elections, the sentiment on the ground, particularly how are people responding to every time a new graft video comes out? What has been their response, particularly based on your observation, Fiqah?
Yeah, so it's the usual frustration. At the same time, I think a lot of people are also not surprised by these things anymore, which honestly is very disheartening, because then that is an indication that, oh, okay, these are, it's the norm almost. However, I will say, questions around good governance, transparency, I think have blown up quite a bit, especially with the Zara Khairina case.
Okay.
That's received the kind of response that honestly I've never quite seen with a case like that. And I think that's brought on a lot of scrutiny to our governance processes and especially in the civil service.
Okay. What kind of response? Can you explain particularly, how would you describe the response? I was going to ask you whether Zara's case is resonating amongst people, but what kind of feelings is it bringing up? What is it? Why is it resonating so deeply on the ground? And is it going to create a groundswell that politicians should pay attention to?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's calling into question issues around good governance and transparency, anti-corruption in the civil service. I think, well, what's interesting to me about this, and not to seem glib or discounted at all, the severity of the case, is that I think it's shedding a light on corruption from a kind of different angle. So a concern for me, and I believe a concern for BERSIH as well, is that people may not realize how deep corruption is entrenched in the system and how far it goes. So many instances of corruption are not the typical kind of or as obvious as money exchanging hands, for example. And if I might segue to kind of another dimension or facet of corruption that's emerging in terms of politics is candidates who are positioning themselves as power brokers. So these are smaller parties, independent candidates who are aiming to win seats with no real interest in forming government necessarily, but rather interest in becoming kingmakers, power brokers. So helping the larger parties become winners and choosing the chief minister. And so this independent kind of movement or group that's now being dubbed the Black Wave.
Oh, tell me more about that. Why is that an area of concern for BERSIH? What power or risks do these so-called kingmakers have for the future of good governance in Sabah?
Right. So they can be seen as vote splitters while saying their aim is to become power brokers, and quite transparently so. And so I think the question for us is whether or not this action is ethical. Because I mean, just if I were to look at it, and I might not implicate BERSIH in this, but just on a personal standpoint, so much of the vested interest in is personal power, and personal advantages, but what it's not necessarily advancing, you know, people's aspirations, advancing or advocating for better policies. It's leveraging on their positionality as smaller parties, smaller candidates, but knowing that with the way politics is going in Sabah, and I think nationally as well, no one or two parties even are able to form a government. And so, you know, these smaller parties and independent groups are aware of this.
Right.
And so that to me is the question of whether or not that is ethical.
Right. So the power dynamics on the ground is also what you will be watching out for. Can I ask you how much MA63 is resonating on the ground? I mean, we had the recent 40% revenue ruling. Is that resonating? Is that something that voters are taking into consideration, or political parties are maybe using in terms of leverage during these elections?
Yeah, it is definitely a narrative tool. In terms of how far or how much it's resonating in the wider public, so much of conversation around MA63 is almost elitist or inaccessible to a lot of people. I think just in the way it's discussed, in that is very much entrenched in political undertones, or that it's a very high level academic subject. And so I'm really big fans of Irwan Idris, who does a lot of these. They just want to make the conversation more accessible, that everybody can talk about it. How much will it sort of influence or weigh on voter sentiment, or how people might vote? I mean, I have to say there is a large sense of just fatigue, that so much of it is lip service, or so much of it is narrative, but no real, people are not seeing real results or gains necessarily from this whole campaign.
Right. Well, what is your message then to Sabah voters ahead of polling day? What should they be vigilant about? What should they be mindful of? And how can they support BERSIH in ensuring clean, fair elections?
I would really say to be very cognizant that our vote has a value. and to come back to what values we hold personally as people, as Sabahans, and what values are important to us for Sabah. And so rejecting money politics, totally. I mean, the narrative before this was, okay, maybe you take the money, but you vote however you want to vote. But we're saying, what if we stop doing that completely and have a critical mass enough to have a paradigm shift, that we're not buying votes anymore, and just really holding the dignity of Sabah very closely to our hearts. At least I am, and really just asking ourselves, what do we actually want for Sabah, not just in our lifetime, but for generations to come? What are the values that are important to us?
Right. Have you thought about the answer to that question? What is it that you want for Sabah, for yourself, and for the future?
Yeah, as far as value goes, for me, what's really important is responsibility. Responsibility as a Sabahan, responsibility to the state. And just on a very deep personal level, love and care for the state, for this land, and reciprocity. To me, Sabah is my home. This land has given me so much. It's taken care of me. The least I can do is reciprocate and to really just to the best of my ability, stand for the dignity of my home.
Right. Vika, I remember in the last Sabah election or post Sabah elections, you wrote a chapter in the book Sabah on the Ground, and you co-wrote about youth participation or youth action in the Sabah elections. I mean, some time has passed now from the last elections, but are you seeing the same kind of momentum or fire in young people in Sabah today, wanting to be part of the political process, wanting to be part of democracy, but also having certain limitations, certain constraints put upon them?
Yeah, I want to say I'm so proud to see more movements and newer youth movements coming up. So very close to my heart are the HAI MANDAK group, the UMS students. They are just doing amazing things. Scene Project Sabah coming up with all these informational postings. So I rest assured that there will always be Sabahans taking on this responsibility and this love for the state. And I really am hoping that it resonates beyond these groups on the ground. But I think they're doing great work, and I think they're reaching people where it matters.
Yeah, they are. They're doing wonderful work, and I'm so happy that we're going to be speaking to HAI MANDAK after this interview. So, Fika, thank you so much for your passion and for bringing some insight into what's happening on the ground to us. We appreciate you and your time. Thank you, Fika.
Thank you.
That was Fiqah Roslan, BERSIH's Regional Vice Chair for Sabah. We're going to take a quick break here and consider this. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Hi, welcome back to Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. Sabah's upcoming elections is not just a political contest, it's also a test of civic participation. How will young voters respond to this election, especially amid ongoing issues such as the Zara Khairina case, as well as allegations of corruption among government officials in Sabah? But joining me now to discuss this further is Priska Magdalena Sinem, who is the lead for HAI MANDAK, which is a grassroots youth movement in Sabah. Priska, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe you can begin by telling us a little bit about how HAI MANDAK began, who started it, what prompted you to launch this campaign. And in fact, why don't you begin by telling us what does HAI MANDAK tu maksud dia apa? What does it mean?
Okay, hello. Hi, thank you for inviting us, Melisa. Thank you, AWANI, for inviting us, HAI MANDAK. So, in a short, HAI MANDAK basically means Hai Sumandak or Hai Ladies. It was often called in Sabah lah, when, especially in Dusun, we call ladies as Sumandak, especially not married ladies lah. So, we shortened the HAI MANDAK, Hai Sumandak to HAI MANDAK. So, it sounds catchy and Gen Z lah. And we really wanted it to sound Sabahan, so that's why we call it HAI MANDAK. So itu secara singkat apa tuh HAI MANDAK lah, maksud HAI MANDAK. So how we started, macam mana kami bermula sebenarnya adalah sebenarnya kami cumalah kawan-kawan lah, kawan-kawan yang kenal di daerah kami sendiri. Sebenarnya ada Kelvina, Suryana, and Cindy lagi lah selain daripada Priska. So kami bermula melalui idea yang kami nampak, di Sabah ada ramai influencer, especially young influencer lah. Tapi kami realize tidak ada influencer yang betul-betul bawa isu-isu tentang Sabah lah dari konteks perspektif Gen Z. So that's why we started HAI MANDAK in this February. We just started this year sebenarnya. So we really excited to share about Sabahan, about Gen Z in Sabah, how we think, how we see the issue in Sabah, and how we hope to see more changes in Sabah lah, in our perspective.
Alright. So I know HAI MANDAK ada beberapa objective. So I think a few of the things you have talked about is the unaffordable travel for Sabah youth. The tickets to come home are so expensive. You talk about political literacy. So tell me a little bit about what HAI MANDAK is doing and what you hope to achieve through your content.
Okay, thank you. So what we currently doing adalah pertama campaign anak Sabah balik mengundi, which we really need a lot of support lah from I believe bukan Sabahan saja, but also Malaysian lah yang lain, because this year more than 50%, which is specifically 54% adalah pengundi belia. So kami lah kingmaker sebenarnya untuk PRN Sabah tahun ni. So that's why we launch campaign anak Sabah balik mengundi, because a lot of Sabahan, more than 200,000 ataupun 400,000 update terkini berada di luar Sabah. So that's a huge number, right? So a lot of them cannot afford to balik untuk mengundi disebabkan the airline ataupun tiket cost untuk pulang saja boleh mencecah lebih daripada RM1,000. So realizing that, kami pun melalui kapasiti kami yang kecil berusaha untuk membawa seramai mungkin lah anak Sabah untuk balik mengundi. So our target was at least 100 young voters lah. At least 100, 150 daripada luar negeri Sabah, 50 dari dalam negeri Sabah lah untuk balik mengundi. Itu usaha kami sekarang. And our target is at least 60,000 lah. But for now, for today, we only reach around 7,000. So we really need help from all Malaysian lah to help Sabahan to bring back our kingmakers lah to vote for this year.
So kalau ada orang yang nak sponsor, boleh pergi ke website HAI MANDAK ya?
Yeah, true. So we don't have any website. So fun fact, we are not an NGO. Kami memang cuma gerakan kawan-kawan yang we wanted to do something lah for Sabahan, as a Sabahan kan. So boleh terus pergi ke TikTok, Instagram, Facebook kami ada post-poster di situ dan we update everything there, and you can just scan our QR ataupun get our bank detail di situ lah. And we are not using our personal account, no. We are using a club lah for our fundraising.
Okay, so your social media pun ada kelas kau ada Kuasa Sabah dan juga 30 hari 30 konten PRN.
Betul.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the political literacy topics you cover. Also, what kind of content is resonating dengan young Sabahans today?
So I believe this is not only for young Sabahan lah, but I realize the pattern of nowadays Gen Z lebih suka konten yang berunsurkan edutainment lah. So that's how we roll lah for our 30 hari 30 konten PRN. Yeah, that's what we do. So what we share is as simple as basic as apa itu dun, apa itu adun, as simple as apa beza PRN dan PRU, because this is the reality. A lot of I believe not only Sabahan lah, but a lot of pengundi muda kurang literasi politik sebenarnya. Because I'm quoting this from selepas undi 18 dilancarkan, ada satu penyelidikan yang mengatakan literasi politik among youths are very low. So we realize it's important not only to bring them back, but also to give them the tools for them to not only mengundi, but mengundi untuk mengundi, but also mengundi dan tahulah consequence of diorang punya undi. Yeah.
Betul. Ya. Macam Khairul Aming punya 30 hari.
Yes, that's the idea. Betul.
Betul. So, based on what you have observed, what are some of the issues that are resonating dengan pengundi muda Sabah sekarang? I'm just wondering sebab kita ada kes Zaira Karina masih lagi di mahkamah, ada lots of the video allegations of corruption coming out. What are young people talking about, Priska, if I may ask you?
So, it's a bit daunting lah, because a lot of young Sabahan, they, I would say, feel like they don't feel hope lah, sangat sebenarnya hopeful. But that's why we do kelas Kau Ada Kuasa Ba. So basically it's a political literacy punya kelas, but we name is Kau Ada Kuasa Ba because we wanted to empower youths and we wanted them to realize that in this democracy in Malaysia, the power should be from us lah, the rakyat, anak-anak muda itself. So that's why kami rebrand kelas kami kepada kelas Kau Ada Kuasa Ba. So before this, the module was made by Mila. And memang inspirasi untuk tailor untuk Sabahan lah, specifically for Sabahan. I realized kelas kenegaraan sounds very classroom, so that's why I changed it to kelas Kau Ada Kuasa Ba. So we discuss lah on one names that catchy dan really have empowering meaning lah. So that's why. And ya, memang anak muda sekarang agak rasa skeptik, first is skeptik, and rasa agak kurang percaya lah, I would say, with PR and I would say pengundian. But that's what we do lah. We hope that from kelas Kau Ada Kuasa Ba and 30 hari 30 konten, they would feel empowered and trust again lah to vote. Yeah.
Well, how do you intend for young people, pengundi muda Sabah yang macam you kata skeptik dan rasa kurang percaya dengan political system di Sabah, what message would you give to them to make them believe yang dia ada kuasa? Lagi satu, what would you say to politicians? So politicians yang underestimate the importance of the youth turnout. You kata 54% pengundi muda, pengundi belia. So, what would you say to the politicians who don't believe in the importance of the youth vote?
Okay, support the politicians. So, I believe Malaysia ataupun Sabah lah, the future is for us, and it relies on us because we are more than 50%, man. So I believe if you wanted to empower Sabah, you need to empower the youths. Kena empower youth. Kena mendengarlah suara daripada belia. Sebab masa depan Sabah sama dengan masa depan belia. Ataupun masa depan belia juga bergantung kepada orang-orang yang mau sama-sama membangun belia Sabah lah. So I hope if you really want us to be involved and if you really want us to be part of changes in Sabah, I think you should take us seriously lah, our vote seriously and our voices seriously. Because I believe this year I can see a lot of movement from youths itself. So kenapa tidak invest in belia? I believe Sabahan punya youths have a lot of potentials. I believe a lot of Sabahan sebenarnya ada talent-talent yang bagus. So why not invest in youths? Why not invest? Why don't you believe in youths lah? Because at the end of the day, who's gonna cover you after us? Kami kan juga. So yeah, please.
Priska, what kind of changes do you and maybe your peer golongan belia, what are they hoping to see? So when you say that you wish for more investment in youth, investment, invest in belia, as you said just now. What kind of vision do you have for Sabah? What long-term reforms would you like to see for your home?
I would love to see more platform for youths, but not just platform, bukan cuma nama, but like really youth-led punya platform lah. That's one thing. And another thing, I hope to see more youths to be involved politically, but not in parties lah saja, but also politically in empowering other youths and also in voicing their ideas, without feeling any fear lah, ataupun with confidence, I would say.
Sekarang ni tak ada ke? Tak ada platform begitu ke?
I would say ada, but a lot of it are more to political punya platform, I would say. Yeah, so I would love to see more platform that is neutral and really wants belia to take lead lah, not just nama lah, I would say.
Okay, so sekarang ni, up to this point, what has been the reception? What kind of responses have you had for the movement of HAI MANDAK?
Okay, so far we have a lot of positive comments juga lah. A lot of support from I'm not against any generation yang sebelum ni, because we see a lot of them are cheering for us sebenarnya juga. But at the same time, a lot of political sentiment were also played lah. A lot of them are trying to like undi this, undi that in our comment sections, and some of them are trying to politically like, these people are from this party, these people are from this party. Sedangkan we are purely from belia lah, a group of belia yang betul-betul believe that belia should do something if we want to see changes.
Wonderful. Priska, thank you so much for joining me on the show, sharing some of your work on the ground with HAI MANDAK. Please tell the HAI MANDAK team hello for me, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was Priska Magdalena Sinem from HAI MANDAK. They're wrapping up this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thanks so much for watching, and good night.